saw last night the difference between someone who's been answering questions and someone who is not.
Yeah,
right.
JD Vance got his reps in. Walz did not. Walz was scared. He was sped up. He seemed almost coked up, super nervous, and he seemed.
Matt Welch says
he
Walz
acted
is
as
doing
if
coke.
he was. He's not doing coke. He was on ibogaine. We know this. But you see the difference of it. And this.
Buckle up, guys. Today we're going to witness a political debate that spirals into one of the most awkward performances you'll see. Right from the start, analysts set the stage by comparing the calm confidence of J.D. Vance to the restless energy of Tim Walz. His nervous energy is impossible to ignore, and it immediately creates a sharp contrast on screen. This isn't just a discussion. It's a battle of composure versus chaos. The tension is set early, and you know something is about to break.
This is a point, again, that Vance sort of made at the end, like, oh, how can they talk about democracy? This is his deflection about January 6th, when they are really bad on censorship, which they are. And part of the not only just being bad on censorship, but if you really care about democracy, you subject yourself to scrutiny. They have not. And the little bit of scrutiny that the moderators added last night, which I appreciated, actually, when they went straight in for the Tiananmen Square question and didn't give him the off-ramp on it, just like, what were you doing, dude? And did something similar to Vance about the Trump-Hitler quote, too. That was fine. He was absolutely trapped. He was a deer in the headlights. You got to subject yourself to scrutiny. They haven't. They think that they can waltz into the White House without taking questions, and that's just
In this segment, commentators zoom in on Walz's shaky demeanor, and the words aren't kind. He appears jittery, his delivery rushed, and his body language unsettled, while Vance holds a steady presence. Some even described Walz as if he were sped up, which made him look almost out of control. This isn't about policy. It's about presence. Leaders are judged on poise, and here Walz looked anything but steady. For an audience searching for confidence, this opening impression was costly.
In the front.
Let me just show, because you're exactly right in the dynamic, and you could tell Walz was unsteady on his feet. Here is part of his very first answer. They kicked off the debate by going to him, and the question was basically as follows: Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, blah, blah, blah. Would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? And here's Tim Walz.
Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those joining at home tonight. Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. But the expansion of Israel and its proxies is an absolute fundamental necessity for the United States to have the steady leadership there. You saw it experienced today, where along with our Israeli partners and our coalition, able to stop the incoming attack. But what's fundamental here is that steady leadership is going to matter.
4 fundamentals and 2.
The first Real test comes with a crucial question on Israel and Iran. Instead of delivering a sharp, reassuring answer, Walz stumbles badly. He repeats the word fundamental multiple times, and worse, he actually mixes up Israel with Iran mid-response. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. It was a glaring error on foreign policy, one of the most serious topics on stage. For viewers, it was a moment that made them wonder if Walz was prepared at all. The unease only grew louder after this.
Too confusing saying Israel when you meant Iran. Not ideal. May I remind you of Donald Trump's first tweet when she chose him? Thank you. That was just... I mean, he did seem unsteady. And that's the thing, because one of the goals when you get out there, Camille, is to try to project, don't worry, if anything happens at the top, I can do this job. And at no point last night did Tim Walz convey that.
Yeah, for a moment there, I almost thought, he's going to get into the thing, like pull out the little board and start drawing up a play. Like, this is what you do. This is how you do it. He's Coach Walz, ready to go. It's just, he was not prepared for this moment.
Here, the focus shifts to what debates are really about, showing leadership under pressure. Instead of rising to the moment, Walz came across as fragile and unsure, leaving audiences uneasy. Commentators point out that his demeanor undermined his purpose for even being there. This was his chance to prove he could project confidence when it mattered most, yet he delivered hesitation instead. Those optics are hard to shake, and once doubt creeps in, it's almost impossible to reverse.
On so many different levels, but I do think like he was just off to a shaky start there. And I was hoping that he meant Iran and its proxies as opposed to Israel and its proxies. It just clearly out of his depth last night. And look, he's had better moments. Some of his speeches have been great. Some of the various campaign events, he's had these just really energetic performances. I
like
gave
his
him
boss.
compliments for his DNC performance, but those are not hostile interrogations. And to the extent debates matter at all, it is that they give you a sense of what these people might be like under pressure. And I think Kamala Harris comported herself much better than her counterpart did last night. But certainly when she's been in these interview contexts, even when they're not particularly hostile interviews, she has not been great. And Walz last night was not great. So I think in both instances, they've kind of taken a bit of an L there. And how much will this matter to the American people eventually? How much does this factor into the actual election? I don't know.
That Cook political report out today says nothing's mattered. Nothing's changed the numbers. That debate between Trump and Harris did not change the numbers. The endorsements by Taylor Swift, whatever, Elon Musk did not change the numbers. Nothing's changing the numbers. They're as tight could be. I do want to spend a minute or two, Moynihan, on the moment where he got confronted about his lie about being in China when Tiananmen Square happened.
I think he was in a tank.
Now the spotlight turns to a controversy that had been brewing. Walz's claim about being in China during the Tiananmen Square massacre. The panel outlines how often he's repeated this dramatic story, and suddenly the timeline doesn't add up. It's a devastating setup because it isn't just about foreign policy anymore. It's about credibility. Was he there when he said he was? For viewers, this became the real suspense of the night. The next moments would either clear him or crush him.
He was standing in front of the tank, bravely.
He was the man with his tank. He was the man with the bag.
I mean, you have to ask with Walz, which side was he on? Was he with the Chinese? He loves the Chinese so very much. Wow. So he said he was over there. It happened in the spring of '89, and it was in the spring. And he did not go over there until August, which, as the audience may know, is not spring by anyone's estimation. And it was part of a pattern of dishonesty by this guy. So to their credit, they raised it yesterday. I would have styled it even tougher, to be honest with you. I would have raised the series of lies he's told. But okay, fine, I'll take what I can get. And it was a meltdown. I mean, it was like a malfunction. That's what I thought I was witnessing. Let's play the soundbite.
And to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that.
When Walz responds, things unravel. Instead of addressing the contradiction head on, he veers off into personal stories, his Nebraska childhood, his time in the National Guard, his teaching years. None of it explains the timeline problem. Observers describe it as a complete malfunction, where he seemed desperate to avoid the question. The more he talked, the worse it looked. Audiences don't want diversions. They want truth. And here, Walz looked like a man running from it.
Watch.
So bad.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
Jeez.
Okay.
Oh, man.
What he said earlier, it was a disaster. But just so you know, according to the reporting, Walz described being in Hong Kong in May 1989, didn't go till August, during the student uprising that culminated in the Tiananmen Square massacre, an assertion that is belied by newspaper accounts at the time. Quote, as the events were unfolding, several of us went in, Walz said at a 2014 hearing commemorating the massacre's 25th anniversary. I still remember the train station in Hong Kong. Several of us went in as the events were unfolding. What? Again, it's like the Hillary Clinton Bosnia moment, that as she could feel the bullets licking her hair as they shot past Moynihan. It's like, these are lies. He did not go in anywhere. He was sitting his ass in the Midwest. He did not go for months after the...
The fact-checking is brutal. Commentators pull up the timeline. Walz claimed to witness Tiananmen in spring '89, but records show he wasn't in China until August. The mismatch is undeniable. They compare this blunder to Hillary Clinton's Bosnia sniper fire story, calling it a textbook case of political fabrication. What's worse, it reveals not just a lapse of memory, but a deliberate narrative. Integrity is everything, and this part drives home the idea that Walz's word can't be trusted.
massacre.
Yes. I mean, weirdly, habitual liars become politicians. Shocking that this happened.
Yeah.
I have to say, not prepared for that answer. I wasn't, as a listener, prepared for his answer. I was driving last night and I almost had to pull over during this because, I know this is coming. And by the way, to point out, he has said this multiple times, that he was in China, he was in Hong Kong. Hong Kong, by the way, at Tiananmen in '89 was not a part of China. It was in '96 it went back to China. But his response, which is like, I mean, who in America? Because his response is like, I was at Lake Minnetonka playing hockey one time. And it's like, dude, no, seriously, you're going to be the vice president.
No. He grew up in a neighborhood where they rode their bikes until the streetlights went on. Who gives a shit? So did I. That doesn't make me qualified to be vice president. No one cares.
The Chinese didn't have the streetlights or something. I don't know where. But I love the best bit was...
The tone shifts to sharp ridicule. Instead of cleaning up the story, Walz leans on anecdotes about riding bikes, childhood adventures, and bringing dancers to China. It sounds bizarre and disconnected from the actual question. Analysts mocked the attempt, noting that it looked more like a comedy skit than a serious defense. To audiences, this wasn't clever. It was embarrassing. The harder he tried to dodge, the clearer it became. He had no solid answer.
I kept on waiting for him to get to the, studied denial that they'd presumably gone over a million times. And he then says, we brought dancers. And I was what are you talking about? No, I mean, it was unbelievable. That was the one thing that I knew that he should expect. I mean, Doug Emhoff is like the least of, Matt, by the way, I just want to point out, I do a podcast with Matt Welch, and I do want to distance myself from a Doug Emhoff apologist like Matt, and I know that he has been having a relationship with his own nanny, which a lot, but let's not, I don't want...
Au pair is different. We've gone over this.
Open hand slaps only. Open hand slaps only. Yeah.
But yes, that was Camille.
Can we just watch? I think we need to replay. You guys replay that second part of the Tim Walz answer on the Tiananmen thing, where it peters out at the end. Because I'll tell you, you know what it had to me? Forgive me, but it had Ron DeSantis weird smile vibes, didn't it? At the end, like where you're like, and don't forget to smile. Okay, just watch.
Governor, just to follow up on that.
This segment plays like a slow motion breakdown. Walz tries to insist he misspoke, but the delivery is halting and unconvincing. He trails off mid-thought, leaving an awkward silence hanging in the air. Commentators compare it to Ron DeSantis' infamous 4 smile moments, where performance is so unnatural it becomes painful to watch. What could have been a quick denial turned into a viral misstep. For voters, it looked less like a mistake and more like exposure.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in
There it is.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest, went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Thank you, Governor.
And I wish I had stopped speaking 2 sentences ago. That's what he was.
I love the formulation, which he did in other places last night of, what I've said is, which is a way of saying that you had an effective line in campaign appearances that I wish I could translate now in a different context so that you would all understand. But maybe if I say it, it'll sound like it's past tense, and it's already been fact-checked at the previous debate. So can we move on, please? Have I run out of time? It is so
well. And here's where was the little
gift?
The gift follow-up to JD Vance, like Tim Walz got after everything. Like, would you like to fact-check specifically the following 2 claims that I just heard from your opponent? They kept giving Walz those opportunities. That would have been a great moment to look at JD Vance and say, do you accept that he just misspoke when he said he was at the massacre and in China when this happened, when in fact he was sitting in Nebraska or Minnesota, wherever he was at the time? Well, JD Vance didn't get any of those opportunities, and it would have been a great chance for JD Vance to say, no, I don't accept that, because this is at least the 12th lie he's told publicly that we've caught him in, and we've only known him for 8 weeks.
No, the mics weren't off. So JD could have pushed in there and probably should have. I mean, if I'd been there, I would have said, I know a little something about geography, and I know that the distance between Beijing and Hong Kong is actually not inconsequential. I have no idea what this man is talking about. It seems like he is telling yet another self-serving lie, and he should just own it if that is what happened. We can forgive you, but only if you can admit that you lied.
I don't know why
he was back stateside, wasn't? I think he was stateside when it happened, and then traveled to China in August. So he wasn't even close.
Yes, months removed. Yeah,
but he was at a Chinese restaurant that night. It was great. He had a great meal.
Pekinged up.
The closing analysis seals the night's narrative. Commentators tally up the damage, pointing out that Walz has already racked up a string of misstatements and contradictions in just weeks under national scrutiny. They argue that J.D. Vance could have pressed harder, but in truth, Walz's own words did the most harm. This wasn't just a weak performance. It was a collapse of credibility. And with the spotlight this bright, that collapse can define a campaign. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.